3 days have passed since the attack. The wounded female has not improved. The deep punctures and tears in her hip have become inflamed, despite the antibacterial properties of lion saliva. Infection has set in, spreading through the damaged tissue and causing fever that leaves her increasingly lethargic. She has not eaten since the attack, unable to participate in hunts and receiving only scraps that her pride members occasionally bring back to a resting spot beneath an acacia tree. The pride's dynamics have shifted in subtle but significant ways. Without their lead female, the remaining hunters struggle to coordinate their efforts with the same efficiency. A hunt that would have succeeded under her direction ends in failure when the remaining females fail to communicate the timing of their ambush correctly. Another hunt succeeds, but results in a smaller kill than the pride needs. The inexperience of the temporarily elevated second-ranking female leading to a premature attack that allows the targetess, larger companions to escape. The cubs are suffering most visibly. At 8 months old, they still depend on their mother's milk to supplement the meat they have begun eating. But milk production requires energy, and energy requires food, and food has become scarcer with the pride's reduced hunting success. The cubs' ribs become more visible with each passing day. The males contribute nothing to hunting, as is typical for lion coalitions. Their role centers on territory defense and protection from threats, not food acquisition. They eat first when kills are made, consuming the best portions while the females and cubs wait. A social hierarchy that ensures breeding males maintain fighting condition, but that places additional pressure on the rest of the pride during difficult times. And the crocodile waits. He has not moved far from the attack site, remaining in the deep pool upstream from the pride's usual drinking location. His metabolism requires little food, and the wildebeest calf he caught 2 weeks before the lion attack continues to sustain him. He watches the bank each day, noting which lions approach and how they behave, observing the wounded female's gradual deterioration with the patience of a creature that measures time and seasons rather than days. The lions have avoided this section of the river since the attack, traveling further upstream to a different crossing point where the water runs shallower and faster, less suitable for crocodile ambush. This detour adds distance and effort to their daily routines, burning energy they can ill afford to expend. But they have learned, at terrible cost, that their usual spot has become a killing ground. On the 4th day, the wounded female attempts to follow the pride as they move toward their new drinking location. She rises with obvious difficulty, favoring her injured leg, and manages perhaps 200 yards before collapsing. The other females pause, looking back at their fallen companion, before continuing on without her. The cubs hesitate longer, particularly those who were born to her in a previous season, before their mother's calls draw them away. She is alone now, too injured to travel, too weak to hunt, too vulnerable to survive without the pride's protection. Hyenas have already begun circling in the distance, their keen senses detecting the scent of a weakened lion. They will not attack while she retains any strength, but they are patient too, in their way. They can wait for the end and then claim their portion. But hyenas are not the only scavengers watching. Vultures circle overhead, their sharp eyes noting the injured lion's location and condition. They will not approach while she lives, but they mark the spot for future reference in the efficient economy of the African savannah. No death goes to waste. Every fallen creature feeds others. The wounded female rests her head on her forepaws and watches the horizon where her pride has disappeared. Whatever thoughts pass through her mind remain unknown to human observers. Perhaps she remembers haunts from her youth, the exhilaration of the chase and the satisfaction of the kill. Perhaps she recalls the cubs she has raised, some of whom survived to adulthood and now carry her lineage forward. Perhaps she simply experiences the moment, the warmth of the sun on her fur, the distant sounds of the African day, the gradual fading of consciousness as infection and exhaustion take their toll. By the morning of the 5th day, she has not moved from her resting spot. Her breathing has become shallow and irregular. Her eyes, once alert to every movement on the plains, now stare without focus at the middle distance. The crocodile's attack, though it failed to drag her into the water, has claimed its victim after all. 2 weeks after the lead female's death, the pride faces a new crisis. The main herds have moved to the northern bank of the river, following localized rainfall that has produced a flush of green grass in that region. 4 days, the lions have watched their primary prey grazing in unreachable safety across waters that seem impassable. They have hunted what they can find on the southern bank, primarily smaller antelope, and the occasional warthog. But these kills cannot sustain a pride of their size. The cubs have grown visibly thinner. The females show signs of nutritional stress. Even the males, who continue to eat first and best from every kill, have begun to lose the body condition that signals prime fighting fitness. If the situation continues much longer, the pride's survival will become genuinely threatened. The remaining adult females have debated the options in the way that lions debate things, through behavioral signals and tentative movements, and eventual consensus rather than verbal communication. They have scouted the river in both directions, searching for crossing points that might offer safety. What they have found provides little comfort. The river runs high for this time of year, swollen by the same northern rains that have drawn the herds across. The shallow ford that the pride has used in previous dry seasons now requires swimming for a significant distance. And the crocodiles, concentrated by the reduced dry season water levels elsewhere, have gathered in unusual numbers along this stretch of river. The pride has no good options. They can remain on the southern bank and slowly starve, waiting for conditions to change and the herds to return. They can attempt a crossing and risk losing members to crocodile attack. Or they can fragment, with different individuals making different choices about risk and reward. In the end, necessity makes the decision for them. On a morning when the cub's weakness has become too obvious to ignore, when the female's ribs show clearly beneath their fur, when even the males have begun pacing restlessly rather than conserving energy in their usual manner, the pride moves toward the river with a different purpose than drinking. They approach a crossing point that offers the best available combination of features. The water here runs relatively fast, which crocodiles generally dislike, and the distance to the far bank measures approximately 50 meters. Rocky shelves extend from both shores, reducing the swimming distance to perhaps 30 meters. The far bank offers an easy climb out of the water onto solid ground, but the crocodiles are present, nonetheless. At least a dozen individuals are visible, their eyes and nostrils breaking the surface at various points in the pool. Others certainly wait beneath the surface, invisible until they choose to reveal themselves. The lions are walking into a gauntlet. The males will cross first. This represents unusual behavior for lion prides. Males typically avoid risk, allowing females to test dangerous situations before committing themselves. But the calculation here is different. The malers are the largest pride members, the most difficult for crocodiles to attack successfully. If they can establish a presence on the far bank, they create a destination for the females. The water where the female disappeared remains disturbed for several more seconds, then gradually stills. Some blood appears on the surface, quickly dispersed by the current, then nothing. The river has claimed another victim. On the northern bank, the survivors gather and count their losses. 10 lions crossed that morning. 9 have reached the far side. The one who remained behind paid with her life so that the smallest cub might live. It is perhaps the most profound sacrifice that nature allows, a mother's willingness to place her body between her offspring and death, even when that death is all but certain. In the river below, the old crocodile feeds. He has caught a lion at last, fulfilling the promise of patience that guided his positioning and timing. His ancient eyes show no recognition of what his prey sacrificed or why. Such concepts have no meaning for a brain shaped by 80 million years of predatory efficiency. The dead lion had no name that humans recorded, no individual story that documentary crews followed. She was simply one female among many in an unremarkable pride in a remote corner of the Serengeti. Her death will not appear in scientific papers or conservation reports, but to the cub she saved, to the pride that continues because of her sacrifice, she was everything. Tragedy creates opportunity. The pride's successful crossing, purchased at such terrible cost, has placed them in territory rich with prey. The wildebeest herds that drew them across the river graze within easy stalking distance. The grass here is green and nutritious, completely unlike the parched brown stubble they left behind. Within days, the pride begins to recover. Successful hunts provide the nutrition they desperately need. The cub's ribs disappear beneath filling flesh. The females regain the body condition necessary for effective hunting. Even the males, always the first and best fed, show improvement in their coats and energy levels. Lions possess memory and emotional capacity far exceeding what earlier researchers assumed. They recognize individuals, remember relationships, and respond to the deaths of pride members in ways that suggest genuine grief. The surviving females frequently return to the bank where they emerged from the crossing. looking across the river toward territory they once considered home, calling with vocalizations that seemed to carry mourning in their tones. The cubs who were closest to the sacrificed female show behavioral changes as well. They remain more cautious around water than their age mates, flinching at sudden movements in rivers or pools, maintaining greater distance from the waterline during drinking. Whether this represents learned caution or something deeper remains subject to scientific debate. As the weeks pass and the pride establishes themselves in their new territory, their relationship with the local water sources becomes increasingly complex. This stretch of river hosts fewer crocodiles than their previous range, but those present include some large and dangerous individuals. Each approach to water requires the same calculations they made before, the same risk assessments, the same moments of tension before drinking begins. But the pride has also learned something about vulnerability. Crocodiles, for all their power in the water, face their own limitations on land. The dry season continues to intensify, and the river that once separated the pride from their prey now becomes their ally in a different way. As water levels drop, the crocodiles that inhabit this stretch become increasingly concentrated in the remaining deep pools. Some individuals find themselves pushed to the margins, excluded from the best positions by larger and more dominant crocodiles. One young crocodile, perhaps 7 feet in length, and clearly subordinate to the larger residents, has been forced to forage in ever shallower water. The competition for space has pushed it into a backwater area where stranded fish provide meager sustenance, but where cover from the sun and concealment from prey approach become increasingly difficult to maintain. The pride has noticed this vulnerable individual. Lions do not typically hunt crocodiles. The risk-reward calculation usually favors easier prey, animals that provide similar nutritional value without the armored hides, the powerful jaws, the specialized aquatic capabilities of but circumstances sometimes create opportunities that override typical behavior patterns. The young crocodile has positioned itself in water too shallow to provide effective concealment or escape. When the pride passes nearby on their way to the main river, several females pause to observe. The largest of them, the new lead female who took command after the old leader's death, stares at the crocodile with unmistakable predatory intent. She remembers the attacks, she remembers the deaths, and she sees, for once, a crocodile that appears vulnerable. The attack unfolds with remarkable speed. 2 females approach from different angles, keeping the crocodile's attention divided. The lead female circles to position herself behind the reptile's head, where those powerful jaws cannot reach her. When the moment comes, they move simultaneously. The lead female pins the crocodile's head to the mud before it can turn to defend itself. Another female seizes the tail, stretching the animal between them. A third joins the attack on the head, biting down on the skull with pressure that, while far weaker than the crocodile's own bite force, proves sufficient against an immobilized target. The crocodile thrashes violently, its cold-blooded stamina prolonging the struggle far beyond what any mammalian prey would endure. But stretched between multiple attackers, unable to bring its primary weapon to bear, its movements gradually weaken. The outcome, once the lions established their positions, was never truly in doubt. After several minutes that seemed to stretch much longer, the crocodile's struggles cease. The pride feeds on crocodile meat for the first time in any of their lives. The flesh, tough and unfamiliar, nonetheless provides valuable nutrition. More importantly, something has shifted in the psychological dynamic between these two species. The lions have learned that crocodiles, under the right circumstances, can become prey themselves. The death of one young, subordinate crocodile changes nothing about the fundamental relationship between lions and crocodilians in Africa. The great reptiles still dominate the water. They still pose lethal threats to any lion that approaches their domain carelessly. The balance of power remains essentially unchanged. But for this pride, on this day, the monsters have become momentarily mortal. And that knowledge will shape their behavior and their confidence for seasons to come. The encounters we have witnessed represent documented phenomena that researchers have studied across Africa's waterways for decades. The relationship between lions and crocodiles is not simple, predator versus prey in either direction. Rather, it constitutes a complex interaction influenced by countless variables that shift with seasons, circumstances, and individual characteristics. Crocodiles successfully capture lions in approximately 35 to 45% of attacks on drinking or crossing individuals, with success rates varying significantly based on water depth, crocodile size, and whether the lion is alone or in a group. Lions that survive initial crocodile attacks often suffer wounds that prove fatal in subsequent days or weeks, meaning true mortality rates exceed what immediate observation suggests. Lions, for their part, successfully kill crocodiles far less frequently. The circumstances typically involve juvenile or subordinate crocodiles in shallow water, situations where the crocodile's usual advantages are neutralized while the lion's strengths remain intact. The physical matchup between these species reveals why context matters so enormously. In deep water, a crocodile holds overwhelming advantages. Its streamlined body moves efficiently while the lion's dense musculature becomes a liability. Crocodile's ability to drag prey beneath the surface exploits the lioness' fundamental need to breathe air. The lion's weapons, claws and jaws, designed for mammalian prey, find little purchase on armored scales. On land, the situation reverses almost completely. Lions can reach speeds of 50 miles per hour in short bursts, while crocodiles manage perhaps 11 miles per hour over very short distances before exhausting themselves. The lion's weapons prove effective against the softer areas of crocodile anatomy, particularly the eyes, nostrils, and underbelly. And crucially, the lion's social nature means that individual crocodiles may face multiple attackers simultaneously. The water's edge, where most encounters occur, represents contested ground where neither species holds decisive advantage. Here, the specifics of each encounter determine outcomes: water depth, approach, angle, crocodile position, line awareness, group composition. Individual size and condition all contribute to the ultimate result. Behavioral research has revealed that both species adapt their strategies based on experience. Crocodiles that have successfully attacked large prey become more likely to attempt such attacks in the future, developing specialized hunting patterns focused on dangerous game. Lions that have witnessed crocodile attacks, particularly those that resulted in pride member deaths, demonstrate increased caution around water sources for extended periods afterward. The landscape itself influences the conflict. Rivers with steep banks offer lions safer drinking positions than those with gradual approaches that allow crocodiles to conceal themselves in shallower water. Crossing points with fast-flowing water favor lions, as crocodiles prefer still or slow-moving conditions for ambush hunting. Rocky substrates that make concealment difficult provide additional safety margins. Conservation implications emerge from this research. Protecting both species requires maintaining the environmental conditions that allow their natural relationship to continue. Habitat degradation, particularly damming of rivers and alteration of seasonal water flows, changes the dynamics in unpredictable ways. Human interference with either population ripples through the ecological web in complex patterns. Climate change looms as a particularly significant threat. Shifting rainfall patterns affect the timing and duration of dry seasons, the periods when lion-crocodile conflict intensifies most dramatically. Extended droughts concentrate both predators and prey at water sources for longer periods, potentially increasing encounter rates and mortality for both species. Changing water temperatures may affect crocodile metabolism and behavior in ways not yet fully understood. The relationship between lions and crocodiles has existed for millions of years, shaped by evolution into its current form through countless generations of adaptation and counter-adaptation. That relationship will continue to evolve as conditions change, assuming both species survive the challenges that human activity increasingly presents. For now, at water sources across Africa, the ancient drama continues to unfold. Lions approach with caution earned through hard experience. Crocodiles wait with patience refined across geological time, and the outcomes remain uncertain, as they have been since these two formidable predators first shared the African landscape. The first clouds appear over the southern horizon on a morning that initially seems no different from countless others. They build throughout the day, towering thunderheads that catch the afternoon light in shades of gold and purple. By evening, lightning flickers along the distant edge of the storm front. By midnight, the first drops begin to fall. The dry season ends, not with a gradual transition, but with a dramatic transformation. The storm that breaks over the Serengeti that night delivers more rainfall in a few hours than the previous 2 months combined. Rivers that had shrunk to shadows of their wet season extent surge back to life. Temporary pools reappear across the landscape. The parched earth drinks deeply, and almost overnight, the first green shoots begin to emerge. For the wildlife that has endured the harsh months of scarcity, the rains represent salvation. The herbivore herds begin dispersing from their dry season concentrations, spreading across the suddenly productive landscape to take advantage of the nutritional bounty. Predators follow, their territories expanding as prey becomes more widely distributed. The pride we have followed responds to these changes with visible relief. No longer confined to the small area around permanent water, they range more widely across their territory. Hunting becomes easier as weakened prey from the dry season falls to their attacks. The cubs, now approaching their first birthday, participate in hunts with increasing frequency and success. And at the river, the dynamics shift once more. The crocodiles disperse as water levels rise and the habitat expands. Individuals that were concentrated in remaining pools now have their choice of territories along the swelling river. The competition that drove young crocodiles to dangerous marginal positions. The density of crocodiles at any given point along the river decreases significantly. For the lions, this dispersal means safer access to water. The odds of encountering a crocodile during any particular drinking session drop substantially. The risk calculations that dominated dry season behavior become less pressing. The pride approaches water with notably less caution, their bodies relaxed, their attention directed toward other concerns. The cycle has completed. The desperate competition of the dry season has given way to the relative abundance of the wet. The losses that both predator populations suffered during the difficult months will be gradually replaced through reproduction and recruitment. Life, as it has for millennia, continues, but the memories remain. The lions who survived the river crossing still show hesitation at water's edge that their pride members born after those events do not share. The crocodiles who learn to target large prey during the concentration of the dry season will carry those lessons forward to future encounters. The evolutionary conversation between these species, written in blood and behavior across countless generations, continues to develop new chapters, and the dry season will return. It always does. The rains that now transform the landscape will eventually fail, as they fail every year. The temporary pools will evaporate, the rivers will shrink, and lions and crocodiles will once again find themselves sharing an ever smaller stage, competing for resources, measuring each other across the thin boundary between water and land. The conflict has no resolution because it requires none. Neither species can eliminate the other. Neither can completely avoid the other. They are locked in a relationship as old as their shared presence on this continent, shaped by evolution to continue indefinitely as long as both populations endure. The sun sets over the Serengeti in a blaze of colors that no artist could fully capture. The acacia trees stand in sharp silhouette against this backdrop, their distinctive shapes recognizable from 1,000 nature documentaries and wildlife photographs. Somewhere on the plains below, a pride of lions settles into their evening rest. The day's hunt proved successful, and they will sleep with full bellies tonight. Somewhere in the river that winds through their territory, crocodiles rest as well, in their different fashion. Their cold-blooded metabolisms require no true sleep, but they enter a state of reduced activity during the cooler nighttime hours. They will resume their patient vigils when the sun returns, watching the banks for opportunities that may or may not materialize. These two species have shared this landscape for the entirety of the lioness evolutionary history and for the most recent fraction of the crocodile's far longer existence. They have shaped each other in ways that scientists are only beginning to understand. The lioness caution around water sources exists because countless ancestors who lacked that caution died in crocodile jaws. The crocodile's ambush techniques have been refined through millions of years of evolutionary pressure that included some of Africa's most formidable prey. The relationship cannot be reduced to simple enmity. Lions do not hate crocodiles. Crocodiles do not hate lions. These are concepts foreign to animal cognition. They are competitors. They are occasional predators of each other. They are fellow occupants of an ecosystem that requires both of them to function properly. The removal of either species would cascade through the ecological web in ways difficult to predict, but certainly significant. For now, that ecosystem remains intact. Protected areas like the Serengeti Mara preserve the conditions that allow this ancient relationship to continue. Conservation efforts maintain populations of both species at levels that can sustain their interactions. Researchers document and analyze encounters, adding to human understanding of two remarkable predators. But threats accumulate. Habitat loss, climate change, human-wildlife conflict, poaching, and retaliatory killing. The pressures that modern human civilization places on wildlife grow more intense with each passing year. For tonight, though, the struggle continues, as it has for time beyond human memory. Lions approach water with caution earned through generations of painful lessons. Crocodiles wait, with patience refined across geological ages, and the outcome of each encounter remains uncertain, as its sole be as evolution has ensured it will always be. And remember that in nature, every struggle has meaning, every life has value, and every encounter between predator and predator writes another line in the endless story of survival. The sun will rise again tomorrow. The lions will approach the water. The crocodiles will wait, and the ancient drama will continue as long as Africa remains wild.